Welcome to the SBCA podcast, Component Connection, where we explore the people, ideas, trends, and innovations shaping the structural framing industry. Regardless of how you touch this industry, we're glad you're here. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Component Connection. My name is Abby Langenberg. I am the Director of Business Development and Member Engagement for SBCA, and I'll be your host today for this episode. Today, I'm joined by Pat O'Donnell, the CEO for Shelfmark, and we're going to talk about their innovation because they were chosen as an innovation grant recipient for 2026 to showcase at BCMC in September. So welcome, Pat.
Thanks, Abby. Great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and about Shelfmark, and what does your team focus on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thanks so much for having me on. Really excited by the chance to share a bit on our company and our product. And so Shelfmark's a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania-based technology product company. Our whole business is performing inline visual inspection in highly complex manufacturing environments. And it's a company that we started in 2022. It's about 4 years old now. At its most simplest, we give our customers, which in this case are truss manufacturers, a product that is everything they need end-to-end hardware, software, and AI to be able to detect common defects in their assembled building components. At its most simple, we install a system at the end of your truss press, inspect every inch of a truss as it rolls off of your line, and detect anomalies in that truss, things like missing plates, bowed lumber, incorrect plate placement, all with the help of deep learning computer vision. Essentially, the AI knows how to find defects in the trusses that are coming off the line. So really excited to unpack that. You know, we're super grateful to have such great partners in this industry and to have been welcomed with open arms by the SBCA, and excited to jump in.
Absolutely. So let's start with the problem, because every innovation starts with a problem. So what challenge or frustration led your team to develop this solution?
Yeah, so I think the best way to answer that question is to explain a bit about our journey as Shelfmark. So we started this company 4 years ago with technology and a team out of Carnegie Mellon University. And essentially, we looked around at at those days, 4 years ago, the really early AI world, and said, there's all this incredible technology that's coming out of places like Carnegie Mellon, but it's going straight to the coast. It's going straight to New York. It's going straight to San Francisco. It's not being used to solve problems for, what we lovingly call the anonymous billion-dollar businesses next door in the heartland, in cities like Pittsburgh, where we're based, Northeast Ohio, upstate New York, beyond. So starting with that, kind of mindset of building out this company, applying AI in our bedrock industries, we really did set out talking to as many manufacturers as possible, finding meaningful problems to solve. And one thing led to another. Long story short, that led us to Stark Truss, an SBCA member headquartered in Canton, Ohio. Met with the team there, and they were describing to us the challenges that they have with inspecting trusses as they come off the line, that they need to dedicate critical resources to ensuring, completeness of a truss and accuracy. And I know the SBCA does a fabulous job around the QA program associated with all of that. Essentially, Stark, chatted with us and said, hey, how could we take the amazing stuff that we're already doing through the QA program with the SBCA and start to build an AI component to this to make this all more accessible in our factory and beyond. And so really, this is something that moved incredibly quickly. We started that conversation with Stark about this time last year, got a prototype into production on their line right about at the end of the year last year. And now we're working with them to expand this to additional facilities and take it to the broader market. I think we're always excited when we see a real tangible problem. In this case, detecting things like missing plates and incomplete trusses and plate misplacements, whatever it may be, and a tangible ROI behind technology like the AI that we built.
Yeah. So if there are any other innovators listening, I'm sure they heard 1 year ago. That is not very long. So What's the biggest hurdle you guys had to overcome to get this innovation where it is today? Because that's a ton of progress to make in 1 year. That is fast work.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I have to acknowledge. Our team here at Shelfmark of engineers, hardware, software, machine learning engineers are just incredible in how quickly they can iterate and bring new technology to market. And then, our fabulous partners at Stark Trust that have provided input and feedback along the way. Really, we can combine that incredible technical aptitude that we benefit from here in Pittsburgh and on the Shelfmark team with the deep subject matter expertise of folks that have been doing this for decades and know how to make this thing, solve the problem that needs to be solved. It's incredible. It's incredible what type of partnership like that can bring to the market. So look, I think what we've built is incredible in the last year, but I also think we're really just scratching the surface on what's possible with AI, with physical AI. Inspection, I think, is just one component of this. There's more we can do in inspection. There's more we can do beyond on the shop floor. And so just super fortunate to be in this position to be able to introduce some of this technology, some perhaps new approaches to longstanding problems in such a large and impressive industry.
So what kind of impact can a component manufacturer expect from this solution if they were to input it into their line tomorrow?
Yeah. So a couple of things. And I think it all comes back to the basics of, they can expect to have visibility to every inch of every truss that rolls off a line installed with Shelfmark and AI intelligence that backs that up. So imagine if you're a truss manufacturer that you have for every single truss that rolls off of your line, you have a high resolution picture that shows you exactly what the top and the bottom of that truss looks like. And then you have an AI algorithm that is inspecting for the most common failure methods, missing plates, bowed lumber, inaccurate plate attachment, all in an automated way. So not only do your workers on the line get immediate feedback when a defective truss rolls off, an alarm goes off, a screen right there tells you exactly what happened, but then your entire team has historical data on every single truss that's come off that line since the product was installed and can pull up images and see exactly what happened, have data behind that all. Think of this as not just your automated inspector, but really your traceability platform to know exactly what your company sent out into the world. If you get a customer complaint, you can pull up an image and see how it came off of your line. This really is meant to be the ultimate visibility platform that solves that hand-to-hand problem of inspection, as well as that larger problem of product quality, traceability, and brand value in the market for a truss manufacturer.
So what's one thing about this system that people don't realize until they see it in action?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, and this is perhaps, an interesting part of our approach, is that our AI algorithms are specially designed so that we can detect issues with your truss without needing to know what your truss was supposed to look like in the first place. Essentially, we don't need to integrate into your software. We don't need to integrate into your line. Essentially, you can just drop our solution in place behind your truss press, roll the truss off the line, and our AI will detect those issues. So I think, when people hear AI and they hear automation and they hear technology just in general, they think about these long, complex cycles and integration processes and things that take months and years. And, rightfully so, because so much technology does require that sort of overhead. And again, in partnership with the folks we work closely with, have been able to design this in a way that it really can be dropped in place, installed, and create value, which I think is something that we in the technology industry do not think enough about when we're thinking about solving hard problems in really complex physical environments.
So shifting gears a little bit, you spend a lot of time in this part of the industry, obviously at least the last year, deeply ingrained in this. So what trends are you watching most closely right now within the components industry?
Yeah, I think, in talking to, and, as you alluded to, right, we've been in this space for a year. I'm far from an expert. Always defer to folks that they're such deep experts in this space on this. I will say one thing that I'm looking at through my technology lens is this concept of practical automation. That I think there's a temptation with new technology like AI, like robotics, to try to skip right to the end and say, how do we do this end to end, lights out manufacturing? Robots are doing all of it, and it's going to be easy, and we're all going to sit on the couch and eat potato chips while the robots build our trusses. I think from what I've heard from just about everyone in the industry is that, one, not only are we not there yet, but also that may not be the ultimate end solution for automation in this industry. I mean, I think building trusses, assembling, building components is an art form in a lot of ways. Observing so much of the work that we've been able to see over the last year, it is not something that's super easily automatable. I'm sure solutions will get there, and that's not to discount the work that's being done, because I know there's a lot of great work being done to that end. But I think it's about taking the technology, using it for its highest and best use, where there's the highest ROI and the least disruption to your business process. I'm biased. I think that's something that our approach does well, is essentially inserting into your current process without creating an interruption. But I do think that's just incredibly important if we want to drive adoption, if we want to drive innovation in the industry, that it's not about overhauling the way that it's been done for decades and longer. It's about meeting the industry where it stands, providing real ROI, not leading with buzzwords, but leading with results. And I think the companies that continue to do that are the ones that will be really successful in this space and in any other.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are you seeing the greatest opportunities for innovation still existing in the structural components building industry?
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of opportunity around this concept of production intelligence. So not necessarily how do we replace humans, but how do we, in a low touch way, in a minimally invasive way, equip those humans with the data that they need to be most effective. So I think inspection is just one of those approaches. There's other data, one of the things we talk about all the time with our customers, what types of sensors, what types of other data can we be collecting in a production environment? Could we perhaps, by using the inspection information that we're creating, the data on missed plates, for example, could we attribute data and say, well, when your shop floor gets over 85 degrees in the summertime, your chances of missing a plate on an assembly increase 4x. By having data like that, can you then say, okay, well, this merits an investment in a, air conditioning unit right by the line, improve the conditions on the line, and now all of a sudden our quality improves, and I have a tangible ROI to justify that, right? That's just one silly example. Whether that, is true or not, I have no idea. But it bears out this concept of, hey, how do we take the processes we have today, collect more and more data, close the loop with things like automated inspection that help us to bear out what happens in the real world, and then ultimately use that to incrementally improve the business. So, look, this is again where I'm so under-equipped to really give a great answer here. And I defer to the folks that are experts that have been doing this for decades. But our goal is just to serve those people and hopefully be a resource to help them, recognize some of these opportunities as well.
Yeah. So how did you guys first learn about the SBCA Innovation Grant, and what made you guys decide to apply? Obviously, you guys work with Stark Trust, who's a member of SBCA, but tell me a little bit about what that process looked like for your team.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're always looking at, and we work across a variety of industries, but I think so important to a strong industry is a strong trade organization that is a kind of central meeting point for that industry. And I'll tell you, Ron from our team was at BCMC last year, and he came back just raving about the experience and saying, look, if this is an industry that we're serious about, we have to have a presence at BCMC. And so that's what led us down this path. And I think we joined as members a couple of months ago, saw the opportunity for the innovation grant, and it just felt like the perfect fit. And, we're excited to have something that's not just innovative, but innovative and implemented, right? Which I think is super exciting. We'll be able to point to real case studies, show this thing in action on a shop floor at Start, and hopefully for many other folks beyond that.
Yeah. So what are you most excited about sharing with the attendees at BCMC? Because there's a lot to unpack for your system here, because it is actually in practice. So what are going to be your priorities? What are you encouraging our listeners to stop by and ask for?
Yeah, I'm an engineer by trade. I'm biased, and I'm going to say data, right? We're going to have data that shows, the only thing, and I know so many in the industry are the same way, right? The only thing better than a good story is some good data that backs it up, right? So stop by, ask us about the specifications on our unit, about the ease of installation, about, changes in detections of issues, whether it's missed plates, whatever it may be, after post installation. Happy to share any of those case studies, any of those conversations with folks, because ultimately the proof's in the pudding, right? And we can put the flashiest booth together in the world, but if we can't share the data, there's only so much value.
It's absolutely. So just to close us out here, if listeners are taking one thing away, what is that one thing that you want them to really focus on from this conversation?
Yeah, I think look, I don't have to tell anyone that AI is here, right? We're all using it day in and day out for, our automation tasks, whether it's spreadsheets or whether it's lists or whether it's, figuring out how much to water my plant on Saturday when I get home, right? We use it day in and day out. And I would say the biggest takeaway is that physical AI is here. So not just the AI that you're seeing on your desktop that you're using with ChatGPT and Claude, but, things like deep learning computer vision that we're using that makes these problems that were previously expensive, complex, difficult, making them more approachable and ready for prime time. And so just super excited to be able to share that with folks. And, I hope that, if what we're selling, if what we're offering is of interest to folks, that they'll stop by and have a conversation. And, otherwise just really excited to be a resource in this industry and learn from others in this industry as well. So excited to meet, a lot of new and familiar faces here in a couple of months.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Pat, for joining us today. And thank you for mentioning BCMC. So our BCMC is going to be from September 14th to the 18th in Columbus, Ohio. And if you're interested on learning more about the Innovation Grant recipients, about BCMC, please check our other SBCA media channels for more information. And if you liked this episode, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use. And we'll see you next time on Component Connection.
Thanks for listening to Component Connection, brought to you by SBCA. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore in a future episode, email us at podcast@sbcacomponents.com.